All right, I'm gonna call to order the Hancock County Commission special meeting for September 17th, 2024.
I move to adopt the agenda as published.
I think we need to, we're removing number 5.
Okay, with the, I didn't
Sorry.
catch that.
Yeah.
As published with the exception of removing item 5.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any public comments? See none. Approval of the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of the September 4th Commissioners' regular meeting as presented.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Eagle Island Fire Equipment Funding.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Ginn hasn't logged on yet. I invited him to this meeting. The document that I attached, that is the one that we had quite a while ago. And it's the one that I felt, and I believe you felt, was a pending document. Here is Mr. Ginn. He's logging on now. Good.
Hello.
Anyway, the document that we have, I guess I felt was pending, and Mr. Ginn thinks that's the official document. So maybe he can explain
Yes, good morning, Commissioners.
with the association.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. First, let me start with an apology for taking so long to get back to what I thought were some very reasonable next steps that you outlined for us in December. I think we, like all of the coastal islands and communities here, had a very busy winter and spring and summer with all of the storms. We lost our main dock at Eagle. My wharf was reasonably damaged. We lost hundreds and hundreds of trees and, of course, a lot of shoreline. So we've been very preoccupied with, getting our systems back up and operating. But I think it did underscore for us that we need to get better prepared from a disaster, and that includes certainly fire and other emergency activities such as we've talked about with you earlier. And so we're on that, and we're very excited to think about the next steps with you all. There's really been no change in our original proposal to you for the equipment budget. It hasn't been updated for inflation, but it is, only 6 months old. So we feel confident that we can live within that budget. The major stepping stone for us was to become an incorporated nonprofit association to qualify for the legal protections that flow through that to volunteer fire associations such as your attorney outlined last year. That step has been completed. We are fully incorporated. The Secretary of State has sent our certificate. They made no changes either in the name, the bylaws, or purpose as we outlined in those documents, so we can consider those to be final from the Secretary of State's perspective, although they can be changed and modified if there were some issue that you wanted us to address in those documents by per the bylaws. So that's where we are, and we're ready for the next steps on the fire grant, and happy to answer any questions.
What do you think the next steps are, Mr. Ginn?
Well, I think what we agreed is that we needed to get set up as a corporation so that we would be formalized and have the necessary mandate and structure. And then I think the next step is to negotiate a grant agreement with the staff of the county for final approval on your part.
a grant agreement for equipment, is that what you said?
Yes, we submitted a budget of $30,000 for the portable firefighting equipment in our, formal proposal to you last early winter, I guess it was. And that money, as I understand it, the funds have been identified through the fire contingency account, which has sufficient funds to cover those costs.
And that amount is still a good number?
$30,000.
That's a good number today.
Yes.
Paul? Michael, has Michigan, there was some concerns from our attorney.
Okay.
Have those been communicated to Michigan?
I didn't unless Miller had mentioned that.
Oh, I guess that's a Miller question, yeah. Miller?
Miller? The,
Yes,
the questions that the attorney had, how do you feel those have been addressed? Or have they,
Or have,
or
I
have they
guess,
been addressed?
I guess the question is, has Mr. Ginn seen them and,
Well, if there's recent correspondence, no. We did see the original correspondence from your attorney outlining what he thought was important in terms of incorporation and qualifying as a voluntary firefighting association. So that I think we have addressed all of those concerns. But if there's been some recent feedback, I have not seen it.
So Miller, are you able to
Miller?
speak to it?
I can't hear Miller.
I think he's looking for the documents, maybe. Miller, are there still any unaddressed concerns from the attorney that we need to think about before we take action?
I was just scanning his last email.
Well, in our packet, the last time that this was brought up, there was,
He says it's a rather broad scope of purposes.
yeah,
However, there is no reference to fire protection or maintaining an organized firefighting unit.
And we've addressed that in this,
no,
yes, we have.
no, we haven't. No, that correspondence is post having this agreement.
Well, if you look at the agreement on the committees on 5.1, it says that Eagle Island Association shall maintain an emergency fire and safety committee.
That's correct.
My question is simply, is Mr. Ginn ready to respond to, my question was, has he seen them? Obviously, he hasn't. And I think he needs to see them and then address them. Maybe they are addressed, I don't know, but I'm not gonna make any of those assumptions.
So I think to a degree there's a little confusion because.
Yes.
But from the last meeting, it was kind of left at, because I was trying to buy both sides of that issue, but the meeting I understood that you were gonna just address it through whatever donation that you provided to them in the
Yes,
language of what you.
We
had
talked about
provided.
that, yes.
So I mean, I know I didn't do anything else with it after that because it seemed like you were gonna address it and when it came to the actual donation, but.
Okay, that's, we
Fine.
talked about that.
Yeah.
That's a good plan. I just wanna make sure Mr. Ginn sees them, that's all.
And I didn't forward that email to Mr. Ginn because I thought that email was attorney-client privilege between Mr. Hammer and the commissioners.
Well, Miller, and you have the email from the attorney, and you have the
Yes.
document in front of us. Do you believe that the document in front of us addresses the concerns of the attorney on that email?
Well, the attorney in his email is saying that he recommend there be a separate entity whose purpose is strictly for maintaining and operating an organized firefighting unit.
And I wonder how separate he means, because Eagle
Right.
Island Association is having a separate committee for fire safety. I mean, how much more separate can you be?
If I might speak to that too, I mean, have a little pity on us. I mean, we have 12 families on this island. Maintaining a corporation, costs money every year. So we're trying to be efficient and lean in our corporate structure while at the same time satisfying the requirements of the law. And as I've discussed this with our attorney, they have said there are plenty of examples of firefighting associations which have broad purposes. We have firefighting associations that operate historical museums, that operate food pantries, that operate, Red Cross-like emergency systems, as well as ambulance services. And so there's a long history of broad purposes here. And there's nothing in the statute that says that it must be a sole purpose organization. So we feel like we have met this requirement in a very reasonable way, given the small size of the island and the number of available bodies to fill officers and slots here. So that's our perspective.
So I'm for going forward with it, just with the caveat that Bill had at the last meeting, that when we essentially send off the letter and check on it, that it's all under the standing that the $30,000 is to go to solely to buying equipment.
And I don't see any reason why that can't be specific. I mean, you could update the cost of your equipment, Mr. Ginn.
Yeah.
Get that to Millard. Millard can draft, basically a letter that would accommodate a check for the exact amount. And, he may ask for verification that it was spent for those items. And I don't see why we have to make it any more difficult than that.
Thank you. I think that's totally appropriate, and we have no problems with any of those conditions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have no problem, except we have a letter from our attorney that raises some issues. Mr. Ginn is not aware of what those issues are. They may be non-issues, but I think Mr. Ginn needs to see them, and we need to address them. He's being advised, we're being advised. It's not, I think,
Do I have permission from the commissioners to forward that letter from the attorney to Mr. Ginn?
Well, obviously, if you're going to satisfy Paul's concerns, but that letter was addressed to us, meant for our purview, to be sure that whatever documents that we approved and whatnot met
Addressed.
his concerns, and we have done that. Now, we can show Mr. Ginn what he told us to do, and gives us the basis for why we're doing what we're doing, but I don't think there's anything for Mr. Ginn to do. He's done what the attorney told him to do, even though he didn't know what the attorney said. Send it to him, fine, but in the meantime, let's,
I'm just trying to do things correctly here. That's all. I'm not trying to fight with anybody. There's been some issues concerned, some issues raised. I just want to make sure they're addressed. If they're addressed, I have no problem.
and
But
I,
I've not heard anybody say they've been addressed.
I have said it,
Well,
now, I know that doesn't,
no, it doesn't do it for me.
I know it, but I'm just saying that I think we're in a position now where we're ready to review a document, giving him the necessary funds. In the meantime, Millard can provide him with a copy of the email. And at our next meeting, when we take action on that letter or that document, that we can see if Mr. Ginn is satisfied that he's settled.
So I'm not gonna vote in the affirmative of anything that our attorney doesn't say you've addressed it. It's just, just the way I operate. We have advice. I think we need to follow it, but I'm one voice. You're free to.
So if we share the information with Mr. Ginn on the concerns of the attorney, and then we still keep moving things forward, I think we're in a good position.
Yeah, and as Michael said, it can be, if they're very simple issues if they're issues at all, if they can be addressed by some other means, I'm all for that. I have no problem with what we've decided earlier. Just want to make sure that we're responsible with federal funds.
All right, so sounds to me like you have permission from us to forward it on to Mr. Ginn.
Oh, excuse me. correct me if I'm wrong, this is not ARPA, this is TIP, isn't it, Millard?
Or, okay, with TIF fund.
I know,
It's coming out of the UT Fire Suppression Reserve account.
TIP money, yeah, okay.
It's TIF money, not federal.
So I think my general consensus that you're going to forward the email to Mr. Miller. In the meantime, you're going to draw up a document giving us, telling us exactly how much funds he needs for exactly what equipment. And that's the letter, the document that we will send with a check for whatever amount that is, if we take affirmative action at a later meeting, correct? Is that what we're doing?
Michael, Monica, does that seem like a reasonable plan?
Yeah, I mean, based on your conversation today.
All right,
I think that's it, Millard. Thank you, Mr. Gann.
Yeah, thank you. I see no problem here. I mean, we're happy to, make sure that the grant agreement addresses all the concerns of your attorney as soon as we know what they are. And I do think it is time to bring this to a head, and it sounds like we're in that direction. So thank you. And we'll work with Miller to try to make this happen as expeditiously as possible.
all right, Millard, we still got one more item, right?
Huge pavement.
Your paving,
Sent you an email this morning.
it doesn't qualify.
I had concerns about his bid.
Excuse me, Millard. First of all, it doesn't fit the TIF funding mechanism.
No, Mans Ridge is not included in the TIF. It will be included in the TIF for Three Rivers, but that won't come in until Three Rivers is up and running.
Well, this is a moot issue then, because I thought we could use TIF monies to pave, and if we can't, then it's a moot issue. On top of that, if you only contacted one paving company, we just didn't even come close to meeting a bid threshold criteria. So I think this is a non-issue today. I would in the future like to see some action on that. I think that would be beneficial to the maintenance program, though, if sometime in the future we could get that done.
What's the other projects up and running?
Yeah, it was a spur of the moment suggestion last meeting when you suggested paving it. Didn't have time to do anything else.
I understand that.
All right, so,
But I think you're right. It's a good idea if we can pave that. It might save future.
all right,
And the
two budgets in front of us. Do you have anything to speak to on it?
there are some increases in the UT budget in trash, fire, and snow removal are the big ones. And I think we were aware of most of those when we were doing the contracts this year.
This is your proposed budget to legislature, correct, Millard?
Yes.
And he just needs approval from us to do that. I mean, to approve the budget, then it goes to the legislature.
Need approval from the commissioners, and then it goes to the legislature.
So just a quick question. You scheduled a public hearing next week also includes a public hearing on this, so I don't know in terms of timing whether Miller needs this today or whether you want to wait until after the public hearing next week to approve both of those budgets and then you can send it off. But I haven't had a chance to ask him about his timetable. So.
My timetable is flexible. I have to have this submitted to the state auditor by November 1st, so I have plenty of time.
Okay, so we definitely should do this after a public hearing.
So take up after next week then. Okay.
All right, we'll take us back up. Thanks, Millard.
Thank you.
All right, airport.
Good morning.
Hello.
So we got a request for a work without authorization letter. That basically is Jacobs needs some place to account for their time until they get a contract going.
I don't know.
Excuse me just a minute. What's the other one that?
That's his audio.
Yeah.
Well, Millard didn't sound very good either.
Well,
Millard was in a motel room.
yeah, this is, I
I don't know
So,
if
do
Leroy.
you have something happening with your mic?
Uh,
Sound like you're underwater.
I'm underwater?
Well,
Leroy's, Leroy sounds like he's muffled, a little bit muffled.
well, this is the,
Now we don't have anything.
Now you're muted.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
how about now? Still the same?
Still not great.
Yeah,
All right, let's.
it's the new computer. So.
New computer.
Yeah, new computer.
Newer is always better.
Okay, so I vaguely understand this, but it sounds like he needs approval for a work without authorization letter. Not sure. Can you explain that just? so I-
I'll attempt to here if you can't hear me real well. So they need a place to put their labor until they get the grant together. This will all be rolled into the grant once it's done. It's just a placeholder in their accounting system, Jacob's accounting system.
Okay, so,
We've done it in the past, and then it just gets rolled into the actual grant.
okay, the reason it's without authorization is because the grant is what gives you authorization. Okay,
Correct. The
okay.
grant in the contract with them, we don't have the contract with them yet. And that's all part of the grant process.
I move to approve the work without authorization letter to Jacobs Engineering for airport service road reconstruction not to exceed $10,000 and authorize the chair to sign.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we got a second request.
I'm gonna move to approve the work without authorization letter to Jacobs Engineering for the airport terminal building window project not to exceed $10,000 and authorize the chair to sign.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I guess I'll try to figure out the sound here. All right, thanks.
Just suggest that between this meeting and the next one, somebody just work on this, see what we can figure out what the problem is. We really need better quality than.
If that's your new computer, we might have to buy a mic for it.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Thank you.
I'll get with Chuck.
All right, thanks. All right, jail.
Yeah, just due to personal family matters, two people no longer work for us.
Go ahead, Paul.
I'm gonna move to approve the removal of Brian Decker from payroll as requested.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna move to approve the removal of Deborah Robinson from payroll as requested.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, before we discuss this next item, I'd like to talk about the process. For a second. Sure. We presently have three collective bargaining agreements, one the jail, one the RCC, one the sheriff's department. Those CBAs are a contractual agreement, not between the union and the employees or the union and the department head, but the union and us. And when we are presented with a side letter changing the conditions of that contract, and we haven't given prior approval or been involved in that, it's tantamount to us negotiating against ourselves. And I would like to put the two department heads in those CBAs and the division manager, whatnot, notice that if they want to change an existing contract, that they come to us with the issue. If we concur, then we invite the union to come to us, sit down and have a session and develop the letter after we have negotiated with the union on that letter. You understand my concerns?
So do you have concerns over being able to make a decision on this today, though?
Yes, I think one of the issues is that the union hasn't even, unless it got it recently, as of yesterday morning, the union hasn't even seen this. And I'm not sure when I asked Joe if he'd seen this, prepared to sign it, because he hasn't signed it. He said, well, I was told that there'd be something coming my way, but I haven't seen anything. Didn't sound like he's even aware of the issue. So anyways, yes, I have concerns about this, and I think this may be, we should put this off. We should invite Joe to come down, sit down, the department, us and the union, and see if we can all come to an agreement on what should be in this document.
Well, didn't you just say that we should have a discussion before it went to the union? Isn't that what this is?
And this is and this is it. I mean, I think we can agree that this is a matter that we should bring the union in, sit down and discuss with them. I think that's a discussion that we should have had before we were given a sideline. Yes, and if we can agree that this is an issue that we may want to come to some resolution on the side letter, then we should invite Joe in to and discuss it and see exactly what's in that side.
I guess I'm just confused because I think that is essentially what we're doing now. I mean, the union is happy to discuss this. It is supported by the union. This was given to.
How did it, Joe doesn't know anything about it. He's never seen this document.
He has. I have sent it to him. I have had correspondence last week with him about it. I have that in text messages and in emails. So
As of 5:56 yesterday morning, Joe sent me an email, said, I am unaware that I am supposed to get that. I'm unaware, I asked him if he was aware of the sideline. I'm unaware that I am supposed to get back something from the sheriff, but I do not have it back yet as of yet. That was yesterday morning. So here we are, we have a controversy in that Joe said he doesn't have it. Dakota says I sent it to him. All the more reason why we should invite Joe in, sit down, and
well, first of all, I have correspondence with our representative, Joe Bocconi. Second of all, Joe Bocconi is exactly our representative, okay? The union, being the sheriff's office employees, is what wants this. So regardless, I have had correspondence with our representative. I have had his blessing on it. And this is something that the union is requesting, absent our union representative or Mr. Bocconi. As far as having a discussion regarding what we're proposing, that's why I presented it. That's to have that discussion today.
Well, to me, I agree to a certain degree with what he's saying, that like maybe we're talking a little bit of semantics and that, yeah, Joe doesn't have the letter because it has to come for us first to discuss it.
He does have it.
Or you know what I mean? Though.
Yeah,
Like,
yes.
it's not gonna, I don't know, it just seems to me like we have to have some kind of discussion over it, right? Before we decide to move forward.
I think we should be having a face-to-face discussion anytime we want to make changes in the contract. You know, there's more to this than just the issue at hand. For example, we were very remiss in not getting an increase in the employee contribution, the insurance. But that doesn't mean that's a lost cause. If, for example, there was an issue that the union really, really wanted, a change in the existing contract, well, perhaps we could enter into that negotiation that you give us some money towards your increase and we'll consider your request. Now, I don't think this rises to that level here, but that's just another reason why anytime there's discussion with the union on our contract, we should be involved in it. And I think that should happen when Joe's in attendance.
With all due respect, the union, like I said, the members that make it up will ultimately make the decision of what we support or do not support as the union. That's why I'm here today, to have that face-to-face discussion. Ultimately, regardless if Mr. Bocconi was here, the position would not be any different. We would not make any different concessions because it's going to be driven by the members of the union.
We can't even agree today whether or not Joe knows about this or not.
I can tell you that he does. I have
I can tell you he doesn't. I have an email. You have an email?
I do, I emailed in, I have text messages from Commissioner Clark, I assure you, he is
I
aware
don't
of
know
it.
why he would send me this document.
I do not know, I think that's probably some of the confusion, if you had a question, you're more than welcome.
And we wouldn't have that confusion if all three entities sat in the room at the same time and talked about this issue.
Is this not what we're doing today?
The third entity, the most important one, the other part of the contract is not here.
Who would that be?
The union. Joe Baconi should be sitting here, we should be all talking about this issue with the union.
I am the union steward, I am here representing the union.
You are not, you are not a union representative, you are a liaison from the employees to the union. You're not the union representative.
Well, the only thing that really I'm not comfortable with is, quite frankly, the union represents the members of that unit. I'm not sure that we should be reaching out to that. I mean, I'm not sure it's proper, quite frankly, for you to be calling the union. I wouldn't do that. I don't think that's proper.
I know it, because you don't want to verify anything the SO brings to us. This is nothing more than verifying that we were prepared to deal with this today. I don't know why you are so offended that I take time to verify information they're bringing to us.
Well, the rest of us are in the dark. We're supposed to be working as a team here. We're not.
Well, I'm trying to help you get out of the dark, and you're rejecting every time I do it. I have trust issues with information coming from the sheriff's department. And a good example is the taser thing. They told us it was a lease purchase, it wasn't. They told us the equipment was over 10 years old, it wasn't. They told us it took 2 months to get refills, it wasn't. I mean, I have reasons to want to double check and verify the information they're providing to us. And when I find issues like this, I bring it to your attention. Now, you just want to carte blanche, blind allegiance to them, let me know that, and I'll stop wasting my time.
I have not said that.
All right. So why don't my suggestion would be that we make sure that Joe Baconi has the letter, and that we get a letter back from Joe Baconi saying that he understands the contents of it. What else? I mean, I know you want to schedule it, but my experience with trying to get Joe Baconi here is not necessarily positive. When he's busy, I'm not sitting around in this room for 2 hours waiting for him to show up because we want to look at a side letter. That we could just get acknowledgement that he's read it, he is in agreement with it, and then we could decide whether we agree with it.
Commissioner Wambacher,
Would you like to see his signature on it before we sign it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Commissioner Wambacher, if I may, so you're just looking for Mr. Bocconi to acknowledge that he is good with the letter.
You could, and I think Commissioner Clark's point of Joe Baconi signing it, if that's what it takes to show that he's in favor of the side letter, that's fine with me. And then we can sit here and make the decision on it.
I guess my only question with that is that I can certainly send it to Mr. Bocconi. When I've asked him in the past, his position on it is much like the union contract where we present it to you guys. I get your signature and then they get their 3 signatures. I'm more than happy to reach out to Mr. Bocconi once again, but I've already had that correspondence. So the only other thing I would say is that if you're comfortable with moving forward with me being the union steward representing the union, then I guess I don't see the difference with proceeding forward today. I can show you the messages on my phone right now if you'd like to show that he has acknowledged and he has received it. I don't know what difference there's going to be. So, I mean, I'm more than happy to send him an email right now or call him, step out and call him and have him send me an email this second if that would suffice. He has seen it, he has approved it. I don't know what difference it's going to be.
I'll tell you, I'm gonna be very offended if he sends me an email and says, I haven't seen it. And I find out that he has, because take Joe at his word. I don't know why he told me yesterday morning that he was waiting to see something, hasn't got it yet.
I think what he's saying is he's waiting to see our signatures on a document saying that we've approved it, and then he's gonna sign it. But
Doesn't even talk about what he's getting, doesn't he need to understand what the issue is?
I guess from my position, I would like to move forward with at least, with this today. I don't see him acknowledging it where I can tell you that he has received it, he already has, reviewed it. I don't know what difference it's gonna be for me just to come back next week and show you an email that, yeah, he has reviewed it yet again. It's the same MOU that he reviewed, that we've gone over back, 3 months ago.
so for Commissioner Clark's concerns, why don't you have him
You want me to
send something back, yeah.
Pass it around?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that, while we address the other topics, just,
Have them forwarded on to the commissioners.
okay, I'll step out right now and
I
have.
know.
The Swans Island contract.
Yep.
I'm assuming we'll skip to that for
All right,
the
so
moment. The adjustment in this is, the adjustment in wages is to reflect, the health insurance, and also there was a parking pass that was dropped off of it. Just where it's supposed to be a money in, money out account or department. We needed to change the rates in which were to reflect the health insurance costs.
any questions?
Commissioner Clark, that
I don't
question
have any
last.
questions, I am disappointed to see there's a provision in there that they're requiring the town to allow the deputy to take the cruiser home. He works 4 on, 4 off, he lives in the Bangor area. Is that where he lives?
He's
Hancock County?
He lives in Hancock County, yes. The
Yeah.
provision with them taking the cruiser off, that's something that they own the cruiser, they agreed to it. That was part of the arrangement, so.
Anyways, I'm glad to see that they finally found somebody, glad to see that it's the ones I was getting.
Got a motion on that one?
Yeah, I'm gonna move to approve the law enforcement contract between the county of Hancock and the town of Swans Island as amended and requested by the sheriff.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll step right up. Thank you.
All right. Move on.
Move on, come back to it.
Yeah, we'll be coming back to item 8. Maintenance.
Morning, gents. The request for a heat pump up in the attic area. This is in lieu of the plan to move the equipment from the attic down to the basement area. It seems like that might not make too much sense, since there's a likelihood that ICC might be moving up in a few years. And it's a big expense to do that, just to reverse it later. So if we protect this equipment by installing a heat pump up in the attic space, we'll extend the life of it and save a bunch of money moving it down to the basement.
And was that project, the moving part of it, that's reflected on this ARPA report, is that correct? Or no?
Yes, we had presented and was approved funding to purchase a backup radio and relocate all of the radio equipment down to the basement outside of EMI.
how much was that?
That's 50,000 total.
50,000?
Yeah, that was for
We
most of
could
the
save
equipment.
50 by spending 25 today.
Right.
Well, I mean, we still, some of it we're still gonna spend, but
Yeah,
It would be a much different location.
and
Okay.
we're not boring into the building, we're not adding a bunch of antenna cables right now. It's just seemed kind of follow the suit of some of the other commentary, of not doing construction projects. That seemed like a good point at this point, we can at least get some
Okay,
temperature control there.
so that project, that
So there was roughly $10,000 worth of construction costs. to drill holes.
So that's in which,
The total project, I believe, was 124,000.
that's what I thought, yeah.
460. Radio system and battery backup.
Yes.
Yeah, this would replace all of that.
No,
Okay, so that's my
There's
question.
still gonna be some, we're still gonna need battery backups.
A bunch of the equipment will still be necessary.
But you're relocating it, you're reconstructing that closet, drilling a bunch of holes down to the building for antenna cables.
But you said that
materials.
was like a $10,000 cost that we,
No, roughly with the construction, the manpower, construction, the
you
drill
must have
holes.
figured that out.
Yeah, we did, and that was part of the, well, I don't have it in front of me. so-
I really would need to know which items you're on that you're not gonna do. And it also would be good to have a quote for what you are planning to do for this heat pump. Which I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, no. The cost is from our regular vendor.
This is this guy that's been putting
Right.
them all in.
Yes, and I did, that was asked, but I don't have to be sick, so I don't have to.
You know, he told you it'd be 4,500
Yes.
to do it.
Right.
So first of all, I guess we consider him sole source because he's the guy that does all the heat pumps.
And has the warranty and is the provider for all of our other sets.
I still think though, you should be getting Monica the information she needs.
Without a
I
doubt,
don't think
I
that should
agree.
hold us up today from approving this.
That's
For
what
sure.
I think to be updated.
And I know Bob is gonna make a similar proposal, but just with different parameters. Like to remove the construction, maybe. I don't even think the total outcome is even known at this time. Wants to make sure that we get it in under the line.
So it doesn't sound like this is emergency. It sounds like we can get our ducks in a row.
Yeah, good.
And then take action.
Yep.
I mean, I'm supportive, I'm just don't wanna take action until we. And I think that's Monica's advice.
I'd
Well,
like
I
to
was hoping I'd have that by today.
I'd like to see that myself, because we need to keep such good track for the reporting to the
You
feds.
talking about the modified plan
Yes, please.
and
Yes, yeah.
All right,
happy to do it.
Okay.
We'll bring that back to when we get there.
all right.
We'll wait on this. At the RFQ. I asked him to put on the agenda today because I want to try to move our project at Washington Junction along because of the time limits on some of the funding that we need. As you know, tomorrow evening, the town of Hancock is going to take a vote on whether or not they'll allow us to purchase that property. As of early this morning, we got a telephone call from the landowner up there saying the purchase and sales agreement is ready. We're going to, it's going to get that to Michael. Michael's going to get that to our attorney for review before we, and his advice back to us before we act on that. But one of the projects that we wanted, that we've been talking about is the third warehouse, which we ended up buying as part of, including as part of the purchase,
Expanded.
was something that we hadn't originally had any intention of buying, but we did, we put it in there at the end because it was of the proximity and some other issues. And we're in discussion, we've been thinking that the best use for that is renovate that into office space, lease it out, and get revenue to help support the cost of maintaining the site in the future. One of the first things we need to do is to get an engineer or somebody to look at that to see if it's suitable for the type of use we want. And so what I'm proposing is that Dennis has developed a request for qualifications from architects. And he's prepared to publish that if the town of Hancock gives us the affirmative vote tomorrow night. And get those out and then bring back the submittals from that. And we can talk about getting somebody on board to help us with design and the work we need to propose to get done.
What's being proposed is similar to our RCC job, which is a contractor at risk. So we hire a team and they come up with a number, a not to exceed number that you approve. And that, I think, gives us the best chance of getting that number and signing that deal before the end of the year.
My guess is Andrew would all have to be involved.
Yes.
So we're not really taking any action other than authorizing Dennis to, publish the RFQ if we have a successful
Based on the outcome of the
vote
vote.
from tomorrow. And the next action would be is to review any submittals we get from architects, and we can decide then if and when we want to hire one and who it would be.
So I think this does, I want to move to approve, staff issuing an RFQ for architectural and engineering services for the EOC building renovation project. If the purchase is approved by the town of Hancock.
Right, if the town of Hancock approves the purchase,
That's my motion.
and I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And the timeline is in,
I think you,
it
yeah,
seems like
we're
we can
meeting,
do
we're
it.
meeting next week at this time. I don't know if you can, Thursday to Tuesday, I don't think
I
that's
think we
time.
thought it was November 1st.
Wait, no, we're going to the 8th. What's November?
We'd have the team established by like November 1st, the early November meeting, if we went with the timeline.
But, big deadline you have on the draft is on the 11th, I think.
Right, that would give us plenty of time to review the submissions and make a decision prior to.
I already get told that, I think I mentioned in my memo too, like, the only other thing I would make sure that we added that disclaimer that you guys have the right to take whatever action you see fit, so. Just so no contractors as well, the only one that submitted it. So
To add, right, add the right to reject, we say,
Subject
the
to
boilerplate,
that.
which should be on all those lines.
So that RFQ, you should be sitting there with Michael, making sure that, like,
Yep, we'll end up, Andy's had his eyes on it, Michael's reviewed it, so we'll be ready to roll with that timeline.
okay, and then while Dennis is here, so is there any indecision, gentlemen, are you prepared wholeheartedly now to move ahead with this project out there? I mean, we're going to spend close to $2 million just to purchase it, and we've got $2 million EOC project to go there. We've got well over $1 million worth of renovations ideas for it. And first of all, I think when we get serious about what we're going to do out there, you're going to find that most of the remaining ARPA funds are going to be used up there, which means we need to really talk about what we're going to do with that, because we have until December 31st to commit that. So
Well, there's also the issue of the EOC grant and the ARPA funds, letting heads potentially. We just have to be,
right, we know that, and
Yeah.
we can't buy, we can't use our ARPA funds to match the 25%. Other than that, though, we can use the ARPA funds to purchase the property. And,
To make county-only renovations.
right, so we're talking, because EOC part of this is really a small part compared to what else we're doing. I don't know. You have planned, to be honest.
yeah,
So you're not gonna prove supporting anything until I see what we're really talking about. It's all pretty abstract.
well,
I need to see more information, I guess.
and you said EOC was a small part of it. I thought EOC was a major part of it.
There's 4 buildings out there. There's 4 acres with 4 buildings.
I understand that, but
EOC's gonna, EMA is going to take the first building, the log cabin. The section between the log cabin and the first warehouse is going to be custom built for the EOC. And so that is really the EOC space. The next building is going to be public meeting space, accommodate up to 60 people. And it's going to be heated, dry storage space. The next building is a large cold storage. And then the last building is what we said earlier, is what we do renovate into office space, lease that out to other agencies and entities, and whatnot to get some revenue to support the site. So that's the overall general plan that we've talked about.
So the thing is, we haven't talked about it.
Yeah.
Like this whole redoing a building and leasing it, that's the first time it's ever been mentioned. It's never been mentioned here. And you're talking about a huge amount of money. So right now, no, you don't have my support. It's not justified. It's not, there's no plan to it. You're trying to railroad it through before we get to the end of the year so that we can use the money for it. That's not, it sounds like a huge project.
It is a
You're
huge
just
project,
gonna
and the
Do it
hesitancy,
because you want to spend the money.
John, the hesitancy is that we don't own the property. A lot's gonna have to happen quickly, and whatnot, we're trying to keep our suggestions on the table, but there's nothing that we can do until we own the property, and we, yes, we can have a meeting dedicated to specifics, just as soon as we know that, our attorney says, yep, the PNS is good to go, and the town says, yes, you can buy. I'm only doing what you gentlemen told me to do. Several months ago, you said that I could serve on the committee with Sankey and Michael and whatnot to talk about this property. And that's all we're doing is.
You brought it up now. I have to have a special meeting, obviously. To talk about what's gonna happen with the rest of the money and how the site's gonna get developed and. I don't know.
Yeah, well, again, I talked to generalities, I was quite frankly, must have missed something, I was under the impression most of this was under the auspice of EMA. And I don't know if that's changed or not,
No, that's, right now, the primary focus
yeah,
is that EOC. I think that Mr. Clark's just trying to look ahead to see, and feel out a little bit of the potential for the space beyond. And there is work that has to be done immediately. The building, the middle building, the large one, needs to be closed in. We know we need to do some closing in and access, the more doors and so forth in other parts of the building. And this would be also allow us to have that in motion a little more quickly.
I don't know, it seems like we gotta develop. Got a little mission creep here that I wasn't aware of. I don't know if you were, John.
So I think we'll just have to make time next.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a great next step.
Start getting dig into some of the details and some of the plans some of the visions you're seeing. Commissioner Clark.
So that's always our plan. I mean, we didn't really do anything concrete till after we get.
Yep, I have the vote.
issues.
Yep, I have the vote.
The vote and, we talked about the personal sales agreement, the details we want to see in that. You know, those were quite specific.
All right. We'll develop something for the agenda to talk about it once we get the vote.
Okay, did we call?
Yeah, we did. It's been approved.
So just to be clear, given the conversation, are we still authorized to proceed with that? I'm not trying to hold anything out. I just want to make sure we're not going down a road that you then ask us, why did we go down that road? So.
Well, my feeling is that there's a committee. And you're free to bring suggestions. Some of these we're just learning about more detail today, I guess. There's no, we need those details to be able to make a decision. I'm not ready to say, I'm willing to build a 60-seat meeting area yet,
I think part of this proposal is to help us make that vision.
Exactly.
Craft that vision.
Yeah.
Not to put a stamp on what we
Yeah.
assume or think, but we
Right.
need
That's
help
my impression.
pulling this together, which is why we publish.
That's my impression. Is that yours, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way that it's been presented,
Yeah.
as I understood it. So,
John and Bill, I don't know.
And, you know, and some of this is not built from the railroad, something through it is, it evolves. For example, that 60-seat meeting space is something that EOC wants to have. Is to, not as part of the EOC, but to complement the EOC. So they're the ones that came up with the 40 to 60-foot meeting space next to the EOC. So, I mean, that's not cast in stone. That's just, that evolved from the EOC tentative plans. And
Right. And merging the RCC component and the IT component all hinge on that type of infrastructure. That's why we need the help
Yeah.
to get the layout, the floor plan settled, and these will all be things that come from the original submissions to the team selection to you for approval.
Move forward with the
Yes, we
RFQ.
voted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should be receiving email momentarily from Administrator Crooker. Mr. McCollum had sent it to Administrator Crooker, myself, and the other union steward, Dylan Hall. Again, stating that he is aware, he is good with it, he has reviewed it.
should be going to your email right now. There's a reason I'm on the phone, by the way, just so everybody knows.
All right, so can you go over the proposal with us a little bit?
Yes, so this proposal is the same proposal that was presented to you a few months back. What it does is it specifically aims to address a couple of things. One aims to address or curb overtime costs during peak season months. It also provides a little bit of an additional benefit to the surrounding communities, Trenton. Additionally, it also saves the county some money financially, not to a great extent, but to some extent it does. This also is a schedule that has been reviewed and approved by the sheriff, also Leroy at the airport manager. In addition to that, this is also something that the like I mentioned, the union, but more specifically the deputy assigned to the airport has also approved. It works well scheduling wise. It works well in a multitude of aspects. Overall, I would think that you as the commissioners would find this proposal beneficial to the county. I'm happy to answer any
So
specific
how,
questions that you need.
so how, so was it that previously it was 12 hours, right?
So that is the schedule that you guys, or that you as commissioners had approved, I believe, back on the June 4th meeting. That is what we have been operating under. It is set to sunset October 31st, and we are looking to continue that. It is something that does cost a little bit more during the non-peak season. Like I said, that also provides a little bit of benefit to the surrounding towns. But the cost or the additional cost during the non-peak season is outweighed by the overtime costs during the peak season. And for that reason is why it is financially sound, and it makes sense, and it also is beneficial to the sheriff's office for scheduling purposes as well.
And the person assigned to the airport can't really wander off much, right? Because he has to be there within.
There's a requirement, they have to be available to respond to the airport within 15 minutes time, so it doesn't allow that individual to really stray too far from the airport or to handle like maybe any, significant calls or assist us outside of that direct vicinity because of that requirement.
But that 15-minute requirement doesn't mean that has to be that officer. TSA considers the sheriff's department 15 minutes away. So if that officer, for example, on his day off, any law enforcement officer can respond to that 15 minutes. The only requirement this deputy has is he has to be on site 30 minutes before every flight. Now, we talked about this the last time. They had 8 flights a day, and it took 12 hours between the time the first flight and the last flight to be there. But 32 weeks a year, there was only 3 flights. And getting there 30 minutes before the first flight, being there when the last flight took off is only 7.5 hours apart. And he's only working 3 flights. Now, 15 minutes from the office to the down there, 30-minute waiting, 15 minutes back is 1 hour for each flight. There's 1,711 flights a year. And if you divide that into the contract, $225,000, that's $131 an hour the airport's being charged. At a time when they're charging Swan Island $64. And in the wintertime, deputy is going to be going down 3 times for 3 hours. And he's got 9 hours and he's not going to be devoted to the airport. And yet the airport is being forced to pay for that. 60% of the time, he's only got 3 flights a day out of the entire year. Now, if on the off season, it was 7.5, 8 hours between flights of responsibility. And you put that deputy on an 8.5 hour, 5-day work week, Monday through Friday, 8.5 hours. Well, gentlemen, the whole world works 8.5 hours a day, Monday through Friday. I don't know why that's an unreasonable schedule. And if he doesn't want to switch when they go to peak travel in the summer, he can work 8.5 hours, supplement the rest of it with overtime or contract time. But to pay this deputy for 9 hours, 32 weeks a year that he's not working for the airport, they have to charge him the airport to pay the deputy what is another case of where this is the only game in town. Leroy doesn't have any options, and whatever he can get, he needs, because he can't run that airport without law enforcement. I'm not opposing this, although I'm not gonna vote for it. I'm not opposed to this because Leroy needs it. I'm telling you, this is a classic case of being gouged. You charge $131 an hour for service, you're charging another entity $64. That's a clear case of gouging.
Before when the sheriff's department took over the security, the company doing it, right? So what's happened with that company?
They stopped doing law enforcement services. I don't know if they stopped doing it, but they stopped providing it for this airport because.
And they couldn't find people too. Right?
I also believe it was an issue of being armed as well, I believe.
What's that?
I believe at that time, it was also an issue of them being armed, which was a requirement. As I've stated in the past, what Commissioner Clark referenced as far as that hourly figure, I think that's, with all due respect, I think that's entirely the wrong way to look at it. We're required to provide security 7 days a week. That requires staff in order to do that. Those 32 weeks a year that he references are also the 32 weeks a year where we see significant delays due to weather cancellations. So it requires a deputy to be at the airport, and those delays far longer than what he's stating. In addition to that, in some respects do understand the hours that are required for the flight times versus the hours of the shift. That being said, like I had mentioned already just a few minutes ago, you don't have the ability to use those people in the same manner as a patrol deputy simply due to time requirements that you have to be able to respond to the airport, the delays, and things such as that. So to paint it a black and white figure like Commissioner Clark is suggesting, I strongly disagree with that.
And my guess is that, I don't know if Leroy's still on, but my guess is that this is probably pretty consistent with what happens at other airports as far as cost wise. Otherwise, the feds who are paying, or not only the feds, but the airline, whoever's paying for this, would be throwing up their arms.
Well,
I would guess.
Well, this is
Different
something.
situations, at different airports. For
This is,
example, the airport that Augusta is owned by the state,
Yeah.
that presents a whole different issue. And the only really comparable is Knox County. Knox County and us and whatnot. And Knox County's LEO is provided by the sheriff's.
Presque Isle as well.
Presque Isle is one, actually bank.
You know,
It's a much bigger scale.
the other thing that I would just bring to your attention, that was mentioned in the meeting a couple times ago, is that Leroy and we met back in May to have this discussion, to say, okay, we knew that there was a new airline contract coming out. What did those security costs look like? What were we going to need for staffing? Because this is something that he was going to enroll in that contract to alleviate, this issue per se, as far as the funding goes. This is what we outlined, this is what he enrolled in that contract, and so this is what that contract pays for.
Monica, that's,
Yeah, you mentioned a federal involvement. There is no more federal involvement.
that's,
That's part of the issue here is that they lost the TSA support.
Right.
So it was being reimbursed by the TSA at a certain rate, and that is no longer happening.
and what Leroy has done is built that in the contract so that that's actually
Yes,
being paid for by the air carrier.
Correct,
yes.
which is
Well,
what,
no, really. Leroy, the timing of this was perfect, Leroy, because it was signed for essential air service contract. And that's what's paying. He's increased his essential air service reimbursement to cover the cost. So Leroy,
It's just not a direct.
despite the fact that I think that he's being overcharged for this, at least it's not coming out of his operational accounts. He's getting the extra money that he needs for this contract and essential air service.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, I move to approve the memorandum of agreement for the airport deputy dated September 17th, 2024, as presented and requested by the chair.
Seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is that the original? Oh, well, give us the copies and give the original to. So for the record, we're being given a copy of the purchase and sales agreement for the property up to 17 Wyman Lane, Hancock. Which Michael is going to send along to our attorney, and he'll get back to us on his recommendation for approving and signing this.
And doesn't it hinge on tomorrow's vote in Hancock?
Yeah, I suspect there's no sense in even sending it to the attorney until after tomorrow, I hope, right? Not that you did get it done before then, so.
County administrator comments?
Just note, this is kind of an evolving, developing, but Commissioner Clark had asked about it as well. Michelle Cody has been working back and forth with Washington County regarding the travel mileage. And apparently, from what I just received, and I haven't had a chance to talk to her or look into this anymore, but it sounds like they're saying that their decision is they're only paying 50% regardless. So I do think we need to put that on a future agenda to have that conversation with you to see how we want to proceed.
All right.
So-
Agenda item on the
So with that said, what, I don't want to start a big discussion, but just a question. We're under no obligation. We're just like them, right? We're under no obligation to.
Well, I mean, again, yes, I think we need to look at, see what they propose, see what our options are, but I mean, if they're refusing to pay us, why can we pay them? I mean,
Yeah,
you
that's.
know, I mean, that's kind of the no-brainer there.
Yeah.
So obviously, without getting into it a little bit more, I can't say that that's
Yeah.
a viable option or alternative. I'm gonna sit here and say right now, yeah, just don't worry. We have to look at that some more, so.
Anything for future agendas, commissioners? Obviously, we need to have a discussion over the.
I feel like we should welcome Dina Gilbert today, the new HR manager.
Oh,
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Thank you
welcome.
for this beautiful weather. It's gorgeous. Trees are already turning.
Obviously, we have to make sure we add to the discussion next meeting. We're ironing out of how we're gonna use the ARPA funds and plans for what some of the visions are for the plans for the
Yeah, just so we can all,
ELC, so we have a better understanding.
all be on the same page. 'Cause we're not.
Make sure that we have Andrew here for that too.
You know, despite your frustration, I don't think you're gonna hear anything legally different you did, hadn't already been mentioned or suggested, or, you know, hoped for, or whatever, came in different ways.
We have a meeting this coming Tuesday for or a week from today for the public meeting. Is there anything else planned for
I mean, I
that?
guess that's the question, whether or not you want to add that discussion about the mileage, DA mileage and all that, or whether you want that to wait until the 8th. Same thing with the opera discussions as well, I guess.
It's kind of too bad to have to go all the way in and meet.
Well, my feeling is that this discussion on Washington County is probably pertinent to the budget, or could be pertinent to the budget. I don't know if I have that correctly or not.
I think the mileage that Robert Granger is being paid for is what it is anyway.
So it won't affect the budget.
I mean, it might have a small effect on the revenue coming back, but I don't know that it's a budget changing.
Be on the revenue side, yeah.
Was that something you'd be prepared to discuss then, or do you feel it should be, I guess I would defer to you and the chair.
I mean, it's certainly, again, without looking at and having that conversation, I mean, I can't say 100%, but we
Yeah.
can certainly try.
I think we could add some of that to the discussion next week.
I mean, it'd be nice to you know, not be here all day, but,
Yeah.
you know, for me, there's an hour and something of travel back and forth.
As we know,
If we could get a little done, it'd be great.
as we know, we've done it today. We haven't been yet, we know that.
I don't think we were prepared.
Well, I mean, the public hearing stuff we couldn't have today.
Yeah.
anyway.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the discussion.
Sure.
I think, for me, most of that discussion is understanding exactly what's going on right now. Understanding everything from who's paying for costs, actual cost, to, you know. Yeah, then, are we making any suggested changes, or? And I can envision bringing you know, the county manager, if not the chair of Washington County, in the Zoom meeting. Trying to resolve any issues. After we meet with the DA.
Got anything else? Paul?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.